Welcome back to the Crypto Factor. My name is Paul. Today we're talking to Brian Solstein, a US Senate candidate that recently made a tweet about getting Bitcoin legal and getting Bitcoin tax-free. We're talking to Brian today. Brian, thank you so much for coming here. Really appreciate it, man.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate being here with you.
So we have a lot of audience around the world. Most of my audience, believe it or not, is actually in America, but there's a lot of people around the world watching this right now. So please tell us a little bit about yourself and your career in politics, so people will know who you are in America. And of course, America leads the world. So everybody else is really anticipating to see what's going on with Bitcoin and everything like that.
Well, I'm a mechanical engineer, aerospace engineer. I used to be involved in writing U.S. patents, also software engineering. So I'm very into, let's call it STEM, science, technology, engineering, manufacturing. And politics is something that I really haven't been all that interested in, but I'm very interested in I'm a privacy advocate. I've been interested in encryption for more than 20 years, back to the PGP, Phil Zimmerman days. And so that led me into Bitcoin. I finally realized what the encryption was all about in 2017. And I got into Bitcoin really because I could see that it just couldn't break. Nobody could break it. It was amazing. And the fact that you're using money, it's proof. If nothing's leaking, it's proof that it's working. There are no backdoors. So that to me is very fascinating. And so it wasn't until later that I got into Bitcoin and really became committed to it as a privacy advocate that I learned the gold bug narrative and learned that, wow, this is really important. And so I was talking to, there's a big influencer named Dennis Portman. He's Dennis Porter down in Oregon. And in Portland, Oregon. And we were talking about, how do we accelerate this legalization of Bitcoin? I went to El Salvador, saw what it was all about, seeing how it's changing lives, really bringing bringing banking to the masses, not just to the financial class. And so I was talking to Dennis about this, and we were talking about running at a state level. And I said, after reading the Constitution, sweet spot, we need to get in the Senate somehow. So that's when I decided let's run for the Senate. And the key point here is that I believe that the Bitcoin community, the vibrancy of the Bitcoin community, gives us a pathway to winning this. Bitcoin is growing. The active addresses are growing about 30% a year, and so this is inevitable.
I agree. People will also want to know about you. What I would like to know before you got into all this, if I met you in high school, what would I think about you?
Oh, I was a dizzy kid back then. I had to learn a lot of lessons the hard way when I was younger. Mm-hmm. And so, as far as having a clear path to success, no, not at all. For me, and especially technology, since it keeps shifting and changing, that's why I continue to shift. Like, I used to be doing software development early in my career, mm-hmm. and I kind of wandered back to mechanical engineering, and it's just now I'm getting back into that because I'm inspired by the open source community with Bitcoin. The Bitcoiners that I met down in El Salvador, I was really inspired by some of the things that they're doing. For example, I learned about Rust and how it just doesn't leak memory, and it's like, wow, this is much better than C++. I mean, it's exciting what's happening in technology.
How are things going in El Salvador, by the way? Is there, a lot of people, they hear about this a lot, but they don't know what it's like. They don't know what's going on. What's it actually like?
Well, let me give you an example. Like Roxy, for example, had a place selling water and other things down very close to the El Zonte beach. And I'd go in and buy a bottle of water for $1 and, use my Strike application, and I would put in her URL or the LN URL or scan the QR code. And I would pay her, and she wouldn't even open up her phone. She would just see the green check on my iPhone. And I'm like, whoa, this is pretty cool, And this is a person that would have to pay in cash, and now she can pay her bills. Now she can maintain a savings. So it is transforming lives in terms of taking people that didn't have access to, they were unbanked. And now with a phone, they can start their savings, and it's not going to evaporate away. It's not going to be bled away by, let's call it modern monetary theory or the magic money printer. It's not going to touch her stuff. She can keep it in Bitcoin and start building a future.
So everyone in El Salvador now accepts or has to accept Bitcoin. Is that true?
Yeah, and it's one of those things where when you get into legal tender, then you're putting, let's say, overhead on merchants to have to accept it. Whereas if you just let's do tax-free, then the merchants have a choice, and you can go through more an evolutionary process. It's more of a baby step. So I think I really strongly believe that what's happening right now in the Senate and the House in the United States, where we're making bills where you can have up to $200 without a taxable event, or $600 in the Senate. One of them will get through, or perhaps both. This is a significant baby step. And after people, wake up to the potential of Bitcoin, then I think legal tender will be a natural step.
Got you. So recently you made this statement that if you were elected, you would legalize Bitcoin, like legal tender, just like El Salvador. Why?
Why? Because
what drove you to do that?
The reason why is I want people to, I want to lay it on the table what my long-term vision is. And on the Senate floor, that will be my number one. Now, of course, there's going to be a lot of baby steps to get there. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we need to slow this. We need to unpack that a little bit to really understand the potential of Bitcoin. We really need to understand how much friction our current system has, and how much it bleeds value from the system and rewards people that are asset holders, and taxes people that are trying to do savings, or taxes them trying to do just simple conservation. We live in a very Keynesian system where that it incentivizes hyperconsumption, and the savers are penalized heavily, and this creates a lot of friction. So with the potential, let me back up a little bit. If we look at just the internet, a decentralized internet, some people call that protocol TCP/IP. And some people are now calling Bitcoin the BTCLN protocol. Mm. And so one is a protocol where you are greatly accelerating the internet, or the TCP/IP. You're greatly accelerating the network of communication, a decentralized network. It's highly resilient. Bitcoin is also a network. It's highly decentralized, and you're greatly accelerating value. So if you marry the two together, we can greatly accelerate the velocity of value. And we can do that 100 times if we can get rid of the friction. The friction is taxes, capital gains. And so that's my long-term vision. It is to make Bitcoin legal, because the benefits to society is to everyone, the rich, the middle class, the poor, and the prosperity and the abundance. We cannot comprehend how immense this is going to bring that kind of prosperity and abundance to everyone. There's really nothing more important than fixing our current broken monetary system.
Got you. And what would it actually, okay, so it will take baby steps. What baby steps would it take for Bitcoin to become legal tender?
First and foremost, buying, let's call it the proverbial coffee, right? We need to make that tax-free. And in the House, in my district, Susan Delbany, she's in the state of Washington. She's in the House, and she has a bill in there to make you can spend up to $200 without a taxable event. There's a senator, Bitcoiner. She has a bill in there for $600. I think one or both of them are going to get through. We are gaining momentum. The Bitcoiners have a voice.
Stupid question. If they both go through, is that like 600 plus 200, or is that just the highest one wins?
There's often a reconciliation between the House and the Senate, and reconciling those bills.
Okay, got you. So that's why I think. Sorry.
I just wanted to add. It also depends on which one is the last bill can supersede the other.
Right. So that's why it takes for Bitcoin to become legal tender over time, of course. What does it take for you to actually get into Congress? A lot of people don't follow politics or American politics. What do you need to get, into the House?
Well, one thing about running for the House is incumbents typically win, more than 80% of the time. But there are upsets. I mean, keep in mind, Senator Murray, she's around 71 years old now. So if she gets into a 7-year term, that means she's going to be 77 years old in the next term. And she represents very much the boomers. And, in Seattle, you have a vibrant millennial workforce, very tech savvy, a lot of Bitcoiners there. And they align more with the way I feel and the way I think. I'm a fiscal conservative. I'm a social liberal, and there's a lot of people like that. Now, Senator Murray, she is a social liberal, but she's a fiscal liberal. She's a big spender, and the U.S. is $30 trillion in debt now.
Yeah.
So we got a problem. We got a problem with the boomer senators that are spending money, and they think that MMT is just great, regardless of the fact that it's bleeding huge amounts of value from our system. And I really believe that we're going to have a hydraulic effect between Bitcoin and fiat currency. As this is bleeding value, you're going to see Bitcoin continuing to displace, to have a hydraulic effect, displacing fiat. It's going to, as fiat continues to bleed value.
Yeah.
Again, the velocity of value is what Bitcoin is really all about. But let me back up here. Let me talk about what Satoshi Nakamoto wrote back in 2009.
Yeah.
Because this is really the hook that we should always be coming back to. Why Bitcoin? What's the point of it? And I'm just going to read it, because in 2009, he posted, Satoshi Nakamoto, the root problem with conventional currency is all the trust that's required to make it work. The central bank must be trusted not to debase the currency. But the history of fiat currencies is full of breaches of that trust.
Yeah.
And, with the Fed and their magic money printer here in the United States, we very well that there's the fiscally liberal senators are very much support that magic money printer. They think it's okay. They think MMT is good.
So some would say Bitcoin. Well, some do say that Bitcoin could be actually bad and damaging to the US dollar. Do you think it would support it, or do you actually think it's damaging? Do you think they can coexist?
I think they're going to, this is just my opinion, and I don't have a strong opinion on that, but I think in the long run that they're going to coexist. I think the US dollar is going to continue to debase forever, just like Venezuela's currency. And I think that the Bitcoin is going to continue to displace, just like that hydraulic effect, forever.
I got a little bit of a sci-fi question here. US dollar, USD used to be backed by gold.
Yeah.
Could we see USD backed by Bitcoin?
I think that's inevitable. The reason why inevitable. The reason why is because U.S. Treasuries have, shown their colors just recently in the Ukrainian-Russian conflict. Yeah. The G7 froze Russian U.S. Treasuries, and then on top of that, the Senate and the U.S. Senate and also England are freezing. They're going through the process of freezing the Russian gold transactions.
Yeah.
So here, the only, let's say, censor-proof, pristine asset left is Bitcoin. So I think a lot of central banks around the world are looking at what's happening with Russia, and they are waking up that Bitcoin is the only censorship-proof, pristine asset out there. U.S. Treasuries aren't anymore, and even gold can be censored. because
Right.
of its centralized nature. It's being held in these large vaults where they can be verified that it's gold. So they have all this certification, which is
Yeah.
all centralized. The whole key point is it's decentralized or it's nothing in the long run. The only assets that are really going to be, let's say, standing in the long run, and currencies, are the ones that are most decentralized.
Brian, how do you view other cryptocurrencies other than Bitcoin?
I wouldn't call myself a maxi. I am not. I'm a Bitcoiner. And what I mean by that is I think crypto is doing a lot of great work, but I don't believe cryptos are all created equal. There's a whole spectrum out there, and there's all kinds of wonderful work that we need to support. But at the same time, there's some stuff out there that as a privacy advocate, I am just against it. If you take a CBDC, a central bank digital coin, to me, that's just a surveillance coin. It's very much in alignment with Beijing's Communist Chinese Party, the CCP, and I'm strongly against CBDCs, even though President Biden just recently in his executive order, he's wrote of an urgency for a U.S. digital dollar. Well, again, this is just fiat, and this is again just another name for a surveillance coin. And as a privacy advocate, and on the Senate floor, I will strongly oppose any deployment of a CBDC.
Yeah, it's actually worse than cash, and isn't most dollars digital anyway, in a sense.
Oh yeah, and in fact, we should even start. Yeah, cash, currency, digital coin. I mean, these things are all interchangeable. Yes.
So how do you think Congress mostly views Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies right now? Like percentage-wise, let's say 60% of Congress versus 40, for example.
Oh, I think 80% of them it's just over their head. They really don't know what they're dealing with. They just look at the digital transformation of the US dollar into a digital coin as being, like no big deal. The Fed and the U.S. Treasuries and the first tier banks like Goldman Sachs and the others, they all do things electronically. They aren't carrying cash to each other. So to them, they don't see how important, how significant Bitcoin is, and what that innovation was. You could do a digital transformation. I mean, you can do a digital transaction from one person to another without a bank, without an intermediary, without any kind of third party. And so in terms of accelerating the velocity of value, it's an extraordinary, it is just as significant as TCP/IP. What TCP/IP did for communication, Bitcoin did for the velocity of value. And we're just at the beginning of this being understood. No, I don't think Congress understands the innovation.
All right, now.
And let me give you an example of that. When people start talking about blockchain, they really don't understand Bitcoin, because blockchain is just one ingredient. I mean, let's talk about Adam Back's Hashcash, which transformed into proof of work, Merkle trees and the blocks. The blockchain is just one ingredient of how this all came together. Bitcoin is the innovation. Yeah. It's not just one ingredient.
Nice. Now, out of 20% in Congress that doesn't go over their heads, do you think out of those 20% are mostly pro or against Bitcoin or crypto?
I would suggest that some of them, like Senator Warren, are strongly against it, because she's a hardcore MMTer. I mean, she really believes that a centralized economy is the way to go. She does not believe in free market. She's constantly blaming businesses and people that are, out there more or less doing the work. People that are, anyone who's making money needs to be taxed. And so, anytime you start printing money, you are shrinking the free market system, and you're expanding the centralized economy. So, the fact that she is really into, let's say, money printing, no, this goes against her beliefs. She is a MMTer. She's very much into Keynesian stimulus. The problem is with the stimulus, since we got off the gold standard and more or less defaulted in 1971, we've been doing money printing like it's a drug, it's a painkiller. And now the U.S. economy is increasingly centralized, and the economy is an addict. We're addicted to the money printing, and if we get off of it, what's going to happen is we're going to have a recession. And so, how can we get off quantitative easing now? Especially if you look at the debt to GDP, it's about 1.22 right now. And I just did some quick calculations on that. If you look at the organic growth of our debt, it is growing about 6%, much larger than our GDP. So what that means is we are in a debt spiral. We have crossed the event horizon, and so we're in trouble.
So out of that 20% that are pro, I don't know what the percentage is, but will it be enough to actually make a change in Congress to get Bitcoin legalized?
I think it's enough to do some baby steps. We can get tax free, and we need to move that. We need to move that end goal. We need to keep expanding the tax free from 200 to 600 to 1,000 to 10,000. We need to keep moving that. We need to get rid of capital gains, because every time we do that, we greatly reduce friction. We greatly increase the velocity of value, and that benefits everyone. That's where we start bringing abundance to everyone, and that abundance that we just cannot even imagine. Technology is accelerating, but what's happening is that technology is being hijacked by the centralized economy. They just keep on burning it up with this compounding debt, and that's where we're going to have to go eventually through a great reset. And that's, again, another hydraulic effect between Bitcoin and fiat.
Do you believe in the great reset? Do you think it's going to happen in our lifetime?
Well, I don't believe in the great reset from the world. What is it? Economic Forum, WEF, right, or the IMF. They think they are the great reset. I find that humorous, because they are not going to be the arbitrators of debt forever.
Right.
They're when money dies, they're going to lose influence. And again, they're going to bleed their value, and they're going to be displaced eventually by sound money. And Bitcoin is the hardest asset out there that's ever been created. So yeah, I think it's inevitable that they're going to lose influence. They're not the great reset. Bitcoin is the great reset.
Got you. So members of Congress recently introduced eCash bill, something that works on privacy, to create wallets. It paves the way to create wallets and things for the digital dollar. Can you tell us about that? Do you know anything about that? What do you think about that?
Well, I think that's just another on-ramp for Bitcoin. It makes it easier to, if you have digital coin of anything out there, it's just going to make transactions a little bit easier. So yeah, these are just developments that are going to help us transition to a more sound currency, Bitcoin.
Doesn't that also pave the way for a CBDC though?
It does. And CBDCs, if there's a choice, if we just allow choice, people are going to flow to the hardest asset, one that can't bleed away, one that isn't melting away like an ice cube. So yeah, it's I'm okay with a free market of all kinds of currencies out there. So I think that kind of competition is good for everyone.
If they bridge a worst case scenario, Bitcoin does indeed become digital gold.
Mm-hmm.
Worst case scenario, if they bridge, Bitcoin does become digital gold in all the sense. Right?
Well, I'm into the, let's say, Bitcoin is digital gold 2.0, but yes. I think that it's better than gold. And there's some people that disagree with me on that, but really the main difference is, gold is a good store of value over time, but over space, gold just cannot compete. And that's, proof is what's happening in Russia right now. Uh, they can censor it. When you have to go over space, you have limitations. And now gold is not all that fungible in a crisis, but Bitcoin continues to be extremely fungible during a crisis.
Yeah. So what do you think the Bitcoin's future is from now on? What do you think, where do you think we're headed here?
Oh, I think that, with the, let's say, the organic growth of wallets growing around 30% a year. On top of that, you have the network effect, not only the network effect on the Bitcoin layer, but the second layer networks, they're also happening. Like Lightning networks, liquid networks, perhaps there'll be additional second layer networks. That's going to have another network effect, demand for Bitcoin. So I believe we're going to eventually get to a point where we're going to have this, I'm not really good at predicting prices, but I wouldn't be surprised if we continue 100% growth annually, as we've been doing. That may slow down a little bit, but eventually when the central banks start, game theory starts to kick in and they start buying, it could go hyperbolic. And that's when, hyper Bitcoinization could occur. I wouldn't be surprised if we had a year where we went up 500%. That wouldn't surprise me.
Do you think we're going to hit 100,000 this year? Little speculation, Brian, just for fun.
I don't know. I'm not too worried about it. I'm not worried about hitting 100,000 this year. If it does, that's great. I've gone through 80% drops and never sold a Satoshi. So, I'm committed to the technology and, how things actually work out price-wise. Generally speaking, price goes up. So I'm happy the way it's performed since I got into it in 2017.
All right, so now that we know you have Bitcoin, if you had to keep 3 cryptocurrencies other than Bitcoin for the next 5 years, which ones would you choose and why?
That's a good question. I'm a Bitcoiner, and as far as looking at the other cryptos, to me, they're interesting from a technological perspective. I'm very interested in the finance side of things, the smart contracts, which includes a lot of different cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin. So nobody has a monopoly there. Being a U.S. patent agent, one thing about patents is they really can't apply to, money. You can't patent. You cannot patent these financing methods or these decentralized. So, if somebody does something in open source, another cryptocurrency can just copy and paste it. Yeah. It takes time to. So I don't think the key point is who gets there first. The last one standing, as far as I'm concerned, coming from a technological perspective, the most decentralized coin, the most decentralized network is going to be the last one standing.
Interesting. Okay. What other bills of legislation is most important to get passed, in your opinion, and why?
I think most important is to make zero tax for Bitcoin transactions. Yeah. And like I said, if we get $200, we just keep on moving it up. I think just doing even $50 would be a breakthrough, because people would quickly see how they don't need their wallet. They can just carry their smartphone and they can go buy coffee at Starbucks or a burger at, some restaurant, and, not having to carry around your physical wallet anymore in the United States would be a big transformation, because everyone has to carry their wallet now, for either carry plastic or the US dollars.
Yeah, good luck if you try to take my girlfriend with 50. Has to be more than 50, man. Has to be more than 50. All right. What's one question, Brian? I'm going to leave links down below so people can follow you. Also, people can follow you right up here. Please like this video and subscribe down below so you don't miss the next video. We're going to have Brian back on once he's in Congress. I think you will, man. I really believe in you. But let me ask you something. What's one question you wish people asked you but seldom do?
I think when I'm talking to people about Bitcoin, they just make the assumption like, oh, Bitcoin's too expensive, or there's some other Bitcoin that's going to come along. And they don't take time to pick my brain on why I believe that there is no competition for Bitcoin. And if they did ask me what I would explain to them, I would say, look, in technology, it's often the people that get ahead, they're on the front of the wave of the technology wave. For example, I used to be in a search engine company before Google was around. Now, Google swept in and they had better algorithms and they were doing well. And once they started to move forward and their wave grew in size, if you're behind that wave, it's almost impossible to catch up with them, almost impossible. So 30 years later, Google is still a growing company. The company that I worked for, Folio, they were bought by Microsoft and eventually buried. So yeah, if you want a small bias, something that isn't as expensive as Bitcoin, I think you might be you're at risk of your technology just simply being buried.
Brian, you're one of the few people that got that question and answered it very fast. As soon as I asked it, congratulations. Thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate you. And I look forward to having you again soon. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. It's really good talking to you, Paul.